Hi, I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. I'm here today with Zamaan Qureshi, a student at American University in Washington, D.C. Following the news of a major Facebook data breach affecting over 530 million users, Zamaan decided to look into exactly what data the social media site had gathered about him. If you're wondering if Facebook might be following you on the internet, then you're about to find out. Welcome, Zamaan. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Great to be on.
So, Zamaan, before we jump in, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Zamaan Qureshi. I am a current freshman at American University. I'm originally from Chicago in the suburbs, and I work for an organization called the Real Facebook Oversight Board.
So, Zamaan, you were recently featured in a Newsweek story after you put a video out on the internet that went viral. Tell us about the video and what prompted you to produce that.
Yeah, so the video came about because I was aware of this Facebook data breach that had occurred, and it was first reported in Business Insider. We at the Real Facebook Oversight Board closely follow what's going on with Facebook, and when this breach was announced, when it was reported, I went to see on a third-party website if my personal data had been included in that breach. I found out that my information had been included, and I wanted to find out more about what Facebook knew about me on my Facebook profile, because I am not an active user on my Facebook account. However, I am on Instagram. And so I remember from the tech hearings in 2018, Zuckerberg had told Congress that there was this feature on downloading your information. And I went to my Facebook account. I went through those steps and I went to find and download my information. And I got a file from Facebook. They sent me a file. I opened it up and just was browsing through. I'm not really sure if I was looking for anything specific, but what I found sort of shocked me. And I wondered if people really knew what the company had been collecting, especially on the activity that was occurring off the Facebook platform.
So I'm curious, Zamaan, before you did that, what was your sense, before you actually, researched that? What did you think, Facebook might have on you and other users?
I mean, I think it's common knowledge now that Facebook is collecting information on you when you're on the platform. But my understanding, my sort of surface level understanding, was that Facebook at times would collect information when you were not on the Facebook platform, on other websites or on other apps on your phone that you were interacting with, away from any sort of Facebook login information, but they were collecting that to better inform their ad targeting and better inform their algorithms to help push you content. And so the information that I found in a folder called your offline Facebook activity, or your off Facebook activity, was thousands and thousands of files from the past 3 years of my activity off of the Facebook platform, and reflected websites that I frequently visited, publications that I've read before, and this was all information Facebook had. And to the best of my knowledge, the only consent I'd ever give them to do that was when I signed their terms and conditions.
So you're basically being followed.
Yes, and that's what I said on my Twitter thread. I said, Facebook is tracking me all over the internet, and I stand by those words today, yeah.
Right. Wow. I don't think any of us know that's happening, Zamaan. It's one thing to accept the terms of service. We all do that. Maybe we should read things a little more carefully. But at the same time, somebody, anybody, a vendor, Facebook, social media companies should be much more forthcoming about that. Kind of concerning. So we asked you to come on today to help other people by showing them exactly how you were able to discover this so that other people can do it for themselves. So, can you give us a quick look into Facebook and exactly how you found that?
Yeah, of course. So when I downloaded my Facebook information, I got this folder called Facebook Dash, and it had my Facebook user ID. I've since changed that to my name, just because that's personally sensitive information. That was also a data point that was included in the breach. Um, so when I click on this, it gives me folders and folders of information about all kinds of things, things you would expect perhaps, such as your comments that you leave on other people's Facebook posts, the friends that you have interacted with and follow. But in there, in the ads and businesses, is a folder called Your Off Facebook Activity. And this is what I included in my Twitter thread. This is the first video, and it's a couple thousand files of just HTML links that will take you to different various websites that you've visited. So I picked out a couple of interest, I think, to everyone here. And so I think the first one I found rather interesting was Uber. So basically, it generates this file, you click it open, and it shows you the various times when you activated that app. So this was personally interesting to me because obviously I use Uber, so that was no surprise. But Facebook had collected this information, and interestingly enough, these dates, March 9th, 2021, March 28th, 2021, this was after I had deleted the Facebook app off of my phone. So either Instagram was doing this data collection, or there is some sort of embedded data sharing within the Uber app that allows them to share this information.
I remember reading in the Newsweek feature that they collected data from the Domino's Pizza app on you, also when you applied to Fordham University. I mean, how widespread is this? How much did they actually collect on you?
Yeah, sure. So so Uber is one example. My Venmo history is another. So whenever I open the Venmo app, so that's an application to transfer money between individuals. So you mentioned Domino's, there's another one, DoorDash. That information was being collected. But also, this one I found rather bizarre. So I did a research project over the summer on immigration, and I went to the Customs and Border Patrol website a couple times, and that is documented in here as well. I found that fascinating. I don't know necessarily why Facebook would want that information on why I was visiting the Customs and Border Patrol Protection website, but here we are. And then another one I picked out for you all is Cultura. And Cultura is a system we use at American University, and I'm sure other universities use too, for our professors to share with us, to share their lectures with us in this sort of virtual world. And they will put the lecture out, but that video is embedded within our American University system. So when we sign on into our sort of American University portal, we open up Cultura and watch a video within our logged in system. And so this data point to me reflected that Facebook knew that I had within our university's internal systems viewed that lecture, which I thought was fascinating.
So I feel like I'm watching something in China. I mean, this feels, like surveillance, more so than just, following you. Maybe they're
Yeah.
two in the same, but, it seems like this type of data collection would be designed to profile somebody and to learn a lot more about them than any of us would ever imagine.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that is also reflected in this. So I have gone through and blurred out the names of who this message was sent to, but I simply sent a message last night. You can see April 18th at 10:22 p.m. And I generated my Facebook data file immediately after sending this message. I wanted to see how quickly Facebook gathered this information on you. I think people expect that their messages are between their recipient and the person who's sending the message.
You think?
Clearly, clearly Facebook believes or that they have the right to look at your messages or at least collect information on what you say. And if you are saying something that could potentially inform ads, then they're probably going to scrape up that information and inform their ad targeting based off of that. Interestingly enough, there have been reports that Facebook is looking to integrate WhatsApp, Instagram, DMs, and Facebook Messenger. So as you all will probably know, WhatsApp is end-to-end encryption. So question I have for Facebook is, if you're going to integrate all three of those messaging systems, does that mean that the encryption goes away? Does that mean that you will start to collect information on people's WhatsApp messages as well if you integrate across all platforms?
So I have to ask, Zamaan, why are you still on Facebook?
I have to be on Facebook because in this virtual world that we are in right now, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, because you and I are speaking through a computer right now rather than face to face, I need their systems in order to be a functioning member of this university campus. I don't have reasonable choice to go and move to another platform or shift away in order to do something. And so I would like to delete Facebook, but unfortunately, here we are today. It's necessary for me to be a university student at this time.
Well, as a student, as a citizen, what needs to happen? I mean, if there's not an insurgence of, users pushing back and leaving the platform over this type of violation of privacy, then, where does that leave us?
Facebook has a lot of issues, and I think, only time will tell where sort of regulation, antitrust comes into play. But as you said, from the user perspective, I think this just goes to underscore what sort of protection there needs to be on users' data, on their information. We in the United States have no legislation on a federal level that protects people or allows people to control their data, to even necessarily be able to force a company or demand data from a company. We are behind the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulations in the EU and in the UK, and we are susceptible and sort of we have to answer to these companies because they can collect any information they have on us at will, and we have no rights over that data.
Is there anything you can do, to the best of your knowledge, insofar as configuring your Facebook account to protect yourself?
Yes, there are steps you can take. When I downloaded my data yesterday, after having gone through the steps that I outlined on my Twitter thread, where I say, okay, here are the settings that you should disable in order to remove or at least tell Facebook that you don't want that offline tracking. And after I did that, I went through and downloaded my data yesterday, and there was no folder called your offline Facebook activity. And so I would hope that Facebook is not collecting that information anymore. But as I indicated in my Twitter thread, there is sort of in the fine print when you're checking that box to say, I don't want to be tracked off of Facebook anymore, that they say, well, we actually might still track you. And so to my question to Facebook then is are you tracking me and just not telling me now what you're tracking me on? Or are you actually having stopped tracking me off of the Facebook platform?
I think the most disturbing part of all of this is that, somebody such as yourself, I have 6 kids, a couple of them are in college right now. For people your age to feel like you can't leave, in order to be a functioning member of, our digital society, that's just flat out wrong. I mean, there has to be choice. There has to be alternatives. What's happening on other social media platforms? Is Facebook unique, or are you faced with this on other platforms?
So I think that Facebook is under the most amount of scrutiny right now because of their history with data and the way that they have misused users' data, the way that data has been breached from their platform. You'll remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal in 2018. This company has shown repeatedly that they cannot be trusted with users' data. But as you indicated, Facebook's argument will be to say, well, everyone's doing it. So to Facebook, their business model is based on monetizing user information. Their business model is to monetize user information, to maximize profit over privacy. They don't have an incentive to stop what they're doing right now because it would hurt their business model and it would hurt any other company that's doing this, their business model as well.
Now, Zaman, in reality, I mean, couldn't you really just get off Facebook right now? I mean, if right now you deleted your Facebook account, you wouldn't be kicked out of the university. They'd have no choice. Wouldn't they have to accommodate you? I mean, could anybody tell you that, you're out because you're off Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, that's a completely valid argument. And I think that's exactly what Facebook would want you to believe, well, if you don't want to use our platform, then go somewhere else and you'll be just fine. But I think in this world today, beyond just being a part of institutions or organizations at my university, just having social interaction with friends and family around the world, especially, is that people are on Facebook, and it is very challenging to tell friends and family, hey, this company is collecting all this information on you. Let's bring ourselves somewhere else. There are communities around the world that are so deeply embedded in Facebook. In Myanmar, for example, and countries around the world as well, Facebook is often considered the internet. In Myanmar, when you purchase a phone, Facebook comes pre-downloaded on that phone. When people refer to the internet, they're referring to Facebook. And so people's news, their information, their local information on community sharing, that's all happening through Facebook.
So Zaman, this is such a precarious situation for users, for people of all ages. If people collectively push back, if people start to leave the platform, if enough people left the platform, do you think there'd be change, or is that just not realistic?
Steve, you'll find this interesting. When this went viral, I sort of spoke to my friends about this as well, and I was like, your data is being mined and collected on you by these companies, and there was sort of almost a numb response to that, as if people were like, well, everyone's doing it. What am I going to do about it? It's almost like we've not necessarily been brainwashed, but we've been pushed into this thought process and believing that we should just accept all data collection on us because there's nothing more we can do about it. And we need a big push from communities, from users, but also from a regulation perspective to ensure that our data is being protected. And when I say our, I also refer to my generation. We have grown up using these platforms. We were in middle school when Instagram was rolled out. And that means that data has been collected on us for years. And so we have social profiles that these companies see that have been built up with thousands and thousands of data points, more so than maybe our parents or our grandparents. And I think that just there's so many scary possibilities around how algorithms can be hyper tailored to you, and how ad targeting can be delivered to you. I think that everyone needs to be concerned with that.
Right. Well, I'm almost outraged, thinking about what I just saw, because I'm looking at you. You're our future. Students in universities. You're our future, and the idea that this could be turned on you. When I think about what could be done, the surveillance that could be applied, the profiling that could be applied to somebody like yourself, it's very scary.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it is very scary.
and in your opinion, most young people, most people your age, college students, they're aware of this or somewhat aware of it, and they just accept it.
Too many of us are almost controlled by these companies, and there aren't that many of them. They hold a lot of power over us by being able to collect this kind of sensitive information on us. And as I said, many of us are completely unaware that this is going on.
Right. So before we leave, for anyone who's interested, and I really hope a lot of people are interested, can you show us quickly how people can, enhance their security and turn off, that option that lets Facebook track you offline?
When you go into your Facebook account, and you go to your settings, you can go to your Facebook information, and then when it says download your information, this is where you can create a file then to first see what sort of information is being collected on you. All these topics will appear, and you will get a file sent to your, or a link sent to your email to view that information. So that, I think, is first interesting to then see what is going on, what sort of information is being collected on you. Then when you get to below that, there's a button called Off Facebook Activity. You can view that here. And then you can manage your off Facebook activity by clicking here. And then you can clear your history. And then you can also manage future activity. And managing future activity will bring you here. This is the button I disabled, called Future Off Facebook Activity. And it says your experience may be less personalized and the ads you may see may be less relevant to you, almost as if to say you're missing out by
We're still
clicking
watching
on
you,
the
just
button.
not that carefully.
Yes, exactly.
Zamaan, I think you're making a big difference. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you speaking out, and we need to do that. I hope you'll come back on and keep us updated. We need young people to pay attention, to be aware of this, and we'll definitely be following up with you. So thank you so much, Zamaan.
Definitely. Thank you, Steve. And I would just like to say that, there are people who are fighting the good fight on this as well. And it's a privilege to work for an organization like the Real Facebook Oversight Board, where there are people who understand these harms and are fighting for change, that are fighting in the public domain for people's rights over their data, for protection on the platform. So I encourage you all to check out their work as well.
Okay, and what's the website for people who want to go there?
You can go to the realfacebookoversight.com, and that will take you to the citizens page, which is the broader organization for the Real Facebook Oversight Board. And under activations, you can click the Real Facebook Oversight Board, and that will take you to our page. I encourage you to meet the board members as well. There are a lot of incredible people doing incredible work around the world.
Well, thank you so much for that, Zamaan.
Thank you so much, Steve. Thanks for having me.
I'm Steve Morgan, founder of Cybersecurity Ventures and editor-in-chief at Cybercrime magazine. Joining us today was Zamaan Qureshi, a student at American University in Washington, D.C. You can keep up with all of our media at cybercrimemagazine.com.